And when that happens, that's the photography god smiling down on you. Uh, Good connection. They were having fun. I think they could see I was really working hard to get the images, but I didn't have enough time. And they were like, you know what? We got the time. Just keep going until you get it. And I would say that happens probably 25% of the time. I'm given a time limit and I get to that point and the artist or the band will say, you know what, do you have what you need? And I'll say, I could use another 5 minutes, and they'll say, no problem. So I think everyone prepares themselves for a disaster so they can get out of there in 15 minutes. But, how is it? It's not very hard to get a great picture of a band like ZZ Top. Of course, I did the group shot, and then I had to get in and do the close-up portraits, right? And, what I've learned is if your subject knows you're into it, because I can get really intense during a shoot. I'm so focused on making sure the light, the this. So I think I don't even notice it, but I've had a lot of people say, man, you are so into it. And I think if they see that you're really working your butt off, they're going to work with you. They're going to work with you and try to give you what you want. I was at a point in my career that I was working so much to where burnout was right there. And Kirsten, when I tell you that my love for photography had turned into almost an anger, I would pick up the camera. I was working under so much timeline and deadline and duress that I remember specifically picking up a camera and shaking. I was totally fine. And as soon as I put the camera in my hand, nervous, anxiety, and I realized that this wasn't good, that I was going to kill myself if I didn't take a break. Because as you know, in photography, once you get going with a good client, you don't want to let them down, and you do everything you can to keep that client, especially if you're a freelance worker, right? Freelance shooter. So I had decided one summer that I was going to go. We had a cabin up in northern Michigan, and I was going to take this bold move and go up to this cabin in Michigan and not take any pictures. And I remember like yesterday, the guy said, why would you want to take a picture of an ugly old guy like me? He said, I haven't taken a bath in a week. And I went home, told my wife that I had met these guys and I was going to go to their farm. And she goes, well, I thought you were going to take the summer off and not take any pictures and relax. And I said, but this is different. This is joyful, and I'm excited to do it. There's no deadline, no art directors, no clients over my back telling me what to do. I'm just going to go take my little 35 millimeter camera, the one I happen to have up at the cottage, and just maybe see what happens. And I went over and photographed those guys with no pressure, none. And the pictures were heartfelt. They were genuine. They were real. And I ended up photographing every farmer in the county. I told those 4 guys that I had such a joyful experience. And instead of taking that summer off, I just made appointments at all these different farms in that county and went over, and it kind of reinvented my love for photography. It reminded me why I got into it in the first place. And it was the combination of doing these images on my own terms and being around the sweetest, kindest, most genuinely beautiful people you could ever want to be around. Farmers are the nicest people in the world, right? And there was no plans for these pictures. I had 30 or 40 portraits of these, and I went back to New York and I showed a great art director friend, and she said, "Oh my God, this is like the best work you've done in years. You should do a book." And I said, "You think?" She said, "This would be a great book." So no book agent, no idea how to get there. Just did some research as to who the best book publishers were, or the photographers that I loved, who their publishers were, and made appointments to go in and show the work. So naive when I look back at it. I mean, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, because it's just not the way you do it. But I was so naive that I got 2 editors at what I believe were great publishers to look at the work, and they both offered me a book deal and said, you know, people love farmers. There hasn't really been a great collection of portraits of farmers. So hit the road and go across the country and let's do this. We need 200. Would be a good book.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, then press here for the full episode in glorious Technicolor. Hey, and don't forget to subscribe.